Hey guys, ChessMobster here. It's been a while, and we're starting a new series. In this series, I go over my OTB tournament games. Recently, I went to this late spring Swiss tournament around my area. The time control was 80 minutes each with a 5-second delay, 6 games total. I use a lot of my time, and my opponents do. So a lot of these games do go into time trouble. If they do, I mention it, and I do not have notation for those games after they go into time trouble. I'll tell you the result. This episode, I will go over the first 3 games of the tournament. Now, let's see the blunders and brilliancies that we make. Oh, and for reference, I actually score 4 out of 6 in this tournament. So I'm curious if you guys can see the pace of the game and to see what result comes out of it, and I'll say everything that happens after every game. With this game, I am black, my first game. I'm around a 1700. They're around 1500. I come into this tournament like third seed. There's 2 people higher than me at 1900 and 22,000. And this game, I try to start off with an opening that I'm very familiar with. We go into it. They start with e4. I go into e6, d4, d5, knight d2. And with this, sometimes I'll do like a c5, bishop e7, but I predominantly go into this like Rubinstein variation with dx c4, making them have to move their knight twice in the opening. Something I'm very comfortable with. And after they take, I go knight f6, wanting to trade off more pieces. Kind of okay with this endgame, knowing that bishop d6, c5, bishop d7 eventually, knight d7. All these things are typical ideas and I'm very comfortable with. He goes the bishop d3 route. I go knight b d7. Bishop e7 is actually okay, or like c5. Well, not c5 now. Bishop even says bishop d7 or knight c4 now, but I really like doing knight b d7 because I'm comfortable with keeping it lax and I have a straightforward idea. After knight f3, I do take, and I boot away the bishop, kind of gaining some time and getting this knight to a good square. They go bishop d3. I go h6. There are some inaccuracies that I play in tournament games that I'm okay with if I kind of understand the gist or they transpose into something I want. Inaccuracies I'll mention, I'll say that like, okay, this was just fundamentally wrong, or I really should have done something else instead of this, but I'm okay with h6, kind of just not wanting this bishop to come to g5. And after bishop b5, this was kind of a misplay by him because it allows bishop d7 or c6. I go for c6 just because I want to keep pieces on the board. And instead of bishop b5, he really should just like castle or knight e5. This knight in e5 is a very strong piece. But after bishop b5, c6, bishop a4, I go bishop d6, and it's kind of an okay move, saying I'm going to play b5 and queen a5 maybe later. Queen a5 doesn't work immediately because of c3, still protecting the bishop. So I go, he goes castle, and then I go queen a5. Now, I like this move because I thought that I would maybe develop my queen, but I see that was kind of wrong because I'm probably going to be playing b5, and this queen really has no understanding to be here. So this was a big mistake by me, and really what I should do is just go b5 and accept my bishop is going to see bishop b7. So it's kind of what happens in the game, but kind of a misplay by me here. Because after bishop b3, I still kind of go the b5 route and bring my queen to c7. Queen is always better on c7 instead of a5, because I just kind of wasted a tempo there. Rook e1, castle, queen e2, bishop b7. And see, this is a very equal game. You know, we're both trying to go for things. Maybe he's going for c4, I'm going for c5. I'm trying to prevent really this knight from ever coming to e5. He goes bishop e3. I go rook fe1, or e8. He goes c4. Now, I make a fundamental mistake in this position. I really should accept that these isolated pawns are really not that bad, and the route I should go for is like bx c4, bishop x, and get my knight to this really nice square. Or like let's say they do queen x, I do queen e7, probably get my rook to the c file, and this is still a very comfortable position for me. But instead, I make the mistake of going a6, trying to say, okay, I'm okay with c5 because if, I'll show you guys one thing that I was thinking of. So after a6, bishop f8, and bishop c2, instead of bishop c2, I had this nice little trap. If you went knight e5, I would be more than equal after bishop x c5, and he can't really take this because then I would take his queen. This is a very comfortable position. And knight x f7 is a very not a move that most likely he would play. I'm actually curious why he can't. I guess if I take, he just takes the pawn back, and my king's a little bit open. Would want me to go like something like bishop e4, and we continue off like this. But this didn't happen. He saw this, and I think didn't play knight e5. He went bishop c2, kind of wanted to exploit this light square diagonal. I go rook a d8. He goes king h1. After the game, he even says this was probably not the idea to go for, and I kind of agree with him. Going king h1, king g1 kind of makes sense if you want to go g4, but he never pushes it because I do think it's weakening in most lines that he goes for. He really should just like develop here, probably go knight e5 eventually, you know. But instead, I go knight d5, rook g1. So yeah, it even suggests he should just go like bishop d2, kind of just keep pressure. But after rook g1, I go g6. Still okay with this move because I want to go king h7, bishop here, just unravel with e5 eventually. He goes rook d, I go bishop g7, he goes queen here, so I have to go king h7 to double protect. He goes rook e1, I go bishop c8, finally saying, okay, it's a6 to idea was not a good idea. I'm going to get to c8, play e5, open it up, and he goes h4, and I go e5. Finally getting to uncramp some of my pieces, and this is how I wanted to unwind. That's kind of why I was okay with c5, but now I see positionally that wasn't the smartest idea. I was kind of happy to get this. And even though I get this, I'm up on time. I misplay it slightly because I see their time pressure, and I should have played a little bit more accurately during this, because after dxc5, I go bishop xc5. But already I had a nicer move of bishop g4, saying, okay, I'm probably going to win this pawn back, even if I don't. Like, I'm just completely destroying your pawn structure. It's not happy. It's not looks like this is a fun position. I mean, look at these pawns, and look at my pieces. Like, I'm going to go like queen dc7, or even queen e7, and this becomes a very fun game for both. Instead, I go bishop x c5, he goes knight x, and this is where I make the fundamental mistake of the game, in my opinion. I really should just go rook x. I think I play it, right? Yeah, I should just go rook x, bishop d4, rook h5, and this is a very fun game. I'm pressuring his king. If he goes g3, I can even go bishop g4. It's very fun for this. But I was just a little tunneled also. Why I played queen x d5 is it's very tunneled that this knight can unravel against his queen. But after bishop g5, I'm basically losing in a sense, and I have to figure out what a way to cut my losses. I actually do find the best way and go hx g5, but guys, there's actually a lot to think about here in the tournament because I was thinking of queen x d1, rook x, queen x, and I would have to suffer this kind of position. But I saw that this really isn't that good. For me, I didn't really like that these pieces kind of seem a little bit less coordinated than these pieces, and I didn't like this material imbalance. There's even queen g7 and allow the down in exchange, but I still didn't like this after h5. It still feels like he has more control and over this e-file. So for my opinion, I went for, I arguably went for the best variation, where I sacked the queen, and after hx g5, rook x, hx, rook e, I kind of have control of the e file, and it becomes kind of like actually harder to play than you can actually think. And I was actually scared of, after I got into this position, of bishop b3, but we go into time trouble. Because he's down at under 5 minutes, I really get concentrated, and I actually win this game. I somehow get a position where I have rooks doubled like here or here. My bishop, I exchange this knight for this bishop, so I make this monster knight into a monster bishop, and I threaten mate in 1. He's actually at 1 second. I'm at 2, and instead of getting flagged or mated in one, he resigns. And it was a very fun game. Not my proudest game, but I did fight on in time advantage, or use my time advantage, and cut my losses in critical moments, because I had to cut my loss in this critical moment. And I was very lucky, but we go into we're 1-0, and we continue after that. So this time, I am white, and I go for d4. I'm a very much a d4 player. We go d6, c4, knight f6, knight c3, c6. So very like Czech variation, kind of like a perk. E4, queen a5. This is a very, I already could tell that this was an inaccurate move when I saw it on the board, but I kind of play inaccurate right after. I should probably go bishop d3 and bishop d3 and the bishop d2 later. Instead, after bishop d2, he just goes, yeah, e5, I go d5. I like this like space advantage that I have. Bishop e7, bishop d3, I'm kind of okay with this inaccuracy. Knight b d7, knight ge2, knight c5, bishop c2, queen c7. Very normal moves, and even though he's pressuring this pawn twice, I kind of have two pieces protecting it. My pieces are going to develop eventually after now this is an inaccuracy I'm actually ashamed of, because why I played knight g3 is I thought bishop g4 wasn't a good move, but it actually is like the best move in the position. I just kind of lacked understanding, and they could still play bishop g3, kind of giving me a weakness. Bishop g4, I mean. So like let's say they played bishop g4 and I go f3, they just go back to d7, and this is actually kind of a weakness for me. It's not as good as I thought it was. um, so instead of knight g3, I really should have just gone h3 and said maybe I'll go knight g3 later to like go for like f5 or h5 knight. But after a5, no, bishop d7, I go h1 because I know he's trying to plan an attack here. And after h5, he does. I go knight f5. Now this is kind of an okay move. Like I'm kind of okay with these like this pawn structure, and I kind of just want to have a bishop pair when he doesn't. And he actually goes for it. And I talked to him after the game uh, that he probably should have just gone here. And then after cx d5, it seems like this is a very like not the best pawn structure for me. After like this just doesn't look the best for me with my pawns here. But it would have been playable and would have been fine. But out of the games this tournament, I felt like this was the most insulting move I came across the entire tournament. He instead, after bishop x6, he goes king d7. He kind of just widely opens, brings his king out. I kind of see the understanding that he wants to get his rooks out, but it's just too opening to bring your king out right now. Um, I still hold that it was terrible, but I punish it somewhat. I should have. I don't convert it fully. After cx d5 or dxc6, bxc6, bishop e3, I play pretty much correctly. After king c8, I play kind of an incorrect move, an insulting move right back, I say. And I thought the pawns were just so badly placed with here that I just don't like it. I thought I could easily win this endgame, uh, but what I should do is just play collected and go like a3, knight cd7, b4, and like this rook is just forever weak. Or I mean, he's gonna have to really trade, and like this king is just not in a fun place. So after dxc5 though, I do another bad move. I mess up. I calculated queen f3, but I thought of e5 sacks or e4 sacks, and so they could have like a mate on h2. I was scared of this dark square diagonal multiple times this game, and I mess it up. But really, there's just a ghost on this diagonal. There's nothing really here. I can even show some lines. Like queen f3 is basically just safe because of like rook b8, b3, rook d8, rook a d1. I'm fine. But like let's say they go knight g4, which is what I was kind of scared of. I can kind of just go like knight b5. And I didn't see this move at all because they can never take because I take the rook. And if they go some move like queen b6, I can just go rook a e1. I'm still fine. That moves the queen away. Or if they go like queen b7, I can actually still go like bishop d4. They can still never take because of this pin. It's very hard to defend this. Like they have to go rook a6. I go like rook a d1. We go rook d8. We just keep going, and I go like rook x d8, bishop x. Or wow, I have knight d6 in that line. Or they go king x, and their king is just wide open. Like I can even go like check if I really wanted to, and probably unwind like that. But no reason to play like that. That is what I should have done in the game. But after knight e4, he kind of messes up, and probably should just take the knight. I think is what, yeah. But instead, he goes king b7, I go queen f3, they go knight d7, I go rook a d1, kind of just trying to develop as much as I can. They go knight f6, they kind of do this repeating maneuver, which I kind of didn't understand, I still don't. But after queen b3, king there, I just try to double up. And I'm okay with this as an accuracy, because I do kind of like this as a move. Because after rook b8, queen c3, my pieces are still very coordinated, and rook d8 never makes sense to me. And after knight xc4, bishop xc4, he goes f6. I think he's trying to argue that this is very cramping, or like there's nothing I can do to get in there, but I really can. And after like I double up, I'm basically saying I do have to ascertain here that I don't want queen d7 to be on the board, so I do actually have to take. And after bishop x d8, I have to try to defend my pawns, get in like this way, and try to win this pawn, try to get my queen in and bishop there. After rook b4, queen f3, a4, I take this pawn on c6. It's very weak and hard to defend. And after rook b6, go bishop d7, king b8, rook a1. I'm kind of okay with this because I want to show a quick trick I had. After rook b7, bishop c6, rook a7, bishop a4, rook a6, and then h4, which is actually a good move. I thought it was a bad move in the game because of the maneuver he has, but it's actually okay because I want to basically lock this pawn and win this pawn eventually. And but I wanted to show a cool trick here because I was kind of trying to do a waiting move too. I calculated this in the game, and this is a moment where I can actually bring out my hat and say there's a beautiful trick here. Is if they go like rook d6, I have queen a8, king x, bishop here, and then mate. So I have a mate in 3. And he says after the game he didn't even see this, but like he didn't even play these moves. And I love that it works both ways because of how strong the light squares are. But after queen e7, he beautifully unwinds with after queen e7, basically saying he wants to get control of this file and wants to have a fun time, maybe even try and trade off into a slightly worse endgame. And after queen e7, I go queen e4. Now, this is probably my biggest miss in the game. Again, I'm scared of this dark square diagonal, seeing a ghost, and I lose most of my advantage here. I really applaud my opponent for squeezing out of this uncomfy position. Like, what I should do is even, like, do take e5. It never hurts. Because after e4, I can always go rook e1, and this dark square diagonal is pretty much nothing because of g3 I have. After, like, here, or let's say even goes here. I can even go queen g4, like winning this. If he goes like bishop here, I just go g3. So very much like I can get out of this position. And this is pretty much what I should have gone for take on h5, but instead I went for e4, and he goes queen e6. Beautiful move, centralizing and trying to either take this pawn or and while attacking this rook. This is a really impressive move. And I go queen d5. I really should just go queen f3, and after queen here, except that I'm at a loss here of this pawn, but I still have a lot of activity here. His rook, bishop really look misplaced. I'm really going to be trying to still play here even down a pawn, and probably will get a pawn back. So, but after queen d5, he goes into, we go into a slightly, like now a really drawish endgame. After rook here, bishop here, rook here, here, here. We get to a position where I basically have to give my pawn back, and what I should do is go like d6, saying that, okay, I give you the pawn back, but I get a pawn back, go back to being a pawn up, and this is decent for me. Like, for me, it was very hard to see this in the game, and we're both start to get down on time trouble. He's still lower than me, but he plays very, very fast for what he's under. Like, I understood I lost my advantage, but I needed to cut my losses with d6. I thought I was trying to put pressure on the clock, but in reality, he was having a better position because of it. Because after f3, he goes king x i5. He should go rook here, try to threaten mate, getting his king here, like after rook x here. This is very strong for his king, but instead he goes king x f5. I go rook x d4, he goes rook x b3, winning back his rook. I go d6 now, bishop b6. I go g4, take, get his king, try to get his king away while I bring my king up. I go king f1, rook b4. Now, this is where it was really time trouble, and there's no notation after this, but the game goes into deep time trouble. Well, actually, wait, first I go rook e2, rook take, bishop take. It's a very drawn endgame. The game goes into deep time trouble where I even get two passed pawns, but but they defend it extremely well and get a draw. They get a position where it's opposite color bishops. I have one pawn, and there's no way I can promote the pawn because of the bishop. So we agree to a draw, and this was the second game. So currently we're 1.5 out of 2, and we now go against the second seed, 1900 player, and he plays a really fun line. I'm black. We do d4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, e4, d5, bishop g5, bishop b4, e5. Now, typically people will be like, okay, you just blundered your piece, right? But after h6, it's actually not really the best to do this line. After ex f6, hx, fx g7, rook g8, they can go like a3, I go bx, bx, and then like queen x6. I'm probably going to win this pawn back after even something like h4, go gx, h4, queen h5, and queen x g7. I win my pawn back. You could argue that it looks a little uncomfy, but it's still like a very nice position. I may even castle queenside. I may even try to advance my pawns here, but they don't want to go into this because they know pretty much that idea. Bishop d2, I do c3, c3, and then knight e4. This is a good position for me. He should go queen g4. It's a better line, but he goes bishop d3. I go knight x d2, queen x d2, and c5. This is kind of a bread and butter position for me, and knowing that I get c5 and he has a double set of pawns, it looks like it's going to be an attacking game for both of us. And after knight f3, I go knight c6. Not my favorite move. Like, I pretty much knew all the theory, at least the gist of it was pretty comfortable here. Though now I learned that c4 actually makes more of a solid and fun game. Because after e2, like, I can castle, go knight d7. I think b5 isn't an idea here. But there's, bishop d7 or b5. I liked b5 actually. And after something, you can't go a4 because I just go queen a here, threatening this, and they castle, I go bx, a4, and be up a pawn. So, or let's say a3, knight d7, castle, queen a5, rook fb1, knight b6, g3, castle. This would be a good position for both. But after knight c6, they go queen f4, so they kind of mess up their lines too. They say it after the game. I go queen a5, a good move by me. King d2, and then again I miss this idea of c4. Like I should have gone, or it even says b6, but I think c4 is actually okay here. Yeah, c4 is okay here because of bishop e2, knight e7, g4, bishop d7. This is actually still good for me because after rook hb1, knight b6, or it even says I should go b6, but I played g5, messing up a little bit, thinking that I can be this aggressive, but after queen f6, I really should go like something like rook g8, because bishop here at least misplaces the bishop, and I can go rook f8 now, and after queen take, at least I can get a little bit of action along this pin. So really, I should have gone g8. I was trying to calculate it, but I thought f8 wasn't really that much different than g8, but it was. And after f8, queen take h6, bishop d7, h4, or queen x g5, cx d4, h4. So from bishop d7 on, I was actually kind of proud of me cutting my losses, but I make a critical flaw in this moment. I should play dx c3, saying, okay, I undouble my pawns, even though your king still gets to e2, like, I still have some play. I'm not actually going to play b4. I think I have to play something like d8. And this would be, like, an okay position. I would be I would say I would be still struggling in this endgame, but it would still be a game. After like queen take, I kind of suffer with having this like pawn here. I go queen d2, which they really should have just done like rook hc1, defend this pawn. But after queen d2, knight x d3, here I again should fight more instead of knight x d3 and do something like f6, which is a crazy idea, but it actually makes sense when we go into endgames later, like into this endgame later. Like after, I think I have it here, after f6, I can actually have a little bit more fun of a game after castling, like still give the pawn away, but if he ever takes, I undouble my pawn. I'm probably going to win this pawn pretty like much definitely, like after f6. So knight x d3 was a little fast to go into because after cx d3, rook g8, I'm kind of okay with g6, but again I probably should go f6. After h5, take take take. This becomes a game, a very hard game to play, but a game. After g8, g3, king e7, trade. I go bishop x c8. I probably could do rook x, but still very suffering here. Knight x d4, a6, a4, f6 now, and I'm glad I got it in a little bit. But after knight f3, kind of makes it where he wants me to take, so he activates his knight, which is very smart. I go bishop d7, a4, bishop c6. I could argue that instead of this, and I calculated this in the game, it was just hard to play. I should actually sack a pawn back, or sack another pawn, and go like d4, because after d4, even though ex f6, king x6 here, and d4, like I at least get a little bit more activity for two pawns. But after d4, rook g4, ex f6, king x f6, king there, bishop e5, knight there, rook g7, knight e5, rook h7, king d2. I'd even do this move just so like in a hypothetical, if these pawns kind of get trapped, I can at least have maybe some counterplay on this file. But after xx, rook b7, g4, these pawns are just too strong, and he shows it after rook x b6, g5, king f5, g6, rook b7, h5, king g5, rook h1, bishop e8, f4. By the way, at this point, like I actually calculated pretty much all these moves. Like all this was actually calculation. And after bishop e8, I actually was in my head, I was like, I don't think you can really develop or move these pawns. Like in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty much lost because even though I'm cramping him, he's probably gonna have some like king moves where he doesn't move his pawns, but he's getting kings active and probably even wins the spawn or gets to move his pawns eventually. But I calculated this, and after these moves, I was like, okay, but there's no way you can push h6. And he puts it on the board. And my heart drops because I'm like, okay, but this is lost, right? Or this isn't lost. I am more drawing now. But I was completely wrong. This is a completely winning endgame. Because after king x f6, or king x g6 h7, I thought, okay, but rook take, knight here. And I didn't see knight there. Right when he put it on the board h6, I saw it. I looked at it, I was like, oh, right. But it was a great calculation by him. Pretty much I could resign here, but I do try to fight on just in case that I could somehow win these two pawns. I go h6, a5, king c3, king f5, knight here. I go king x f4, and I really think maybe there's a possibility. But after knight x c6, king here, they have this beautiful move, knight c5. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And after knight c5, I'm still like, okay, but can I not bring my king in? He threatens his pawn. I go a4. He goes knight back to c5, and I go e3, and I still think I can somehow win this pawn. But well, now not here because of I mess up in the game, and I go e3, and I thought, okay, maybe I just made a miss, right? Maybe I could have actually drawn this with like a3. But a3 doesn't do anything, because after that, king b3, king e3, he goes this beautiful knight e6 move, and there's no way I can attack this pawn. It creates a beautiful line, and this is a beautiful endgame that he basically wins. I resigned here, rightfully so. He at here. I resigned here, rightfully so. So as of the time of this tournament, I am 1.5 out of 3 and have 3 rounds to go. So we will go over the next 3 rounds in the next video. It was nice to see you, chess thugs, and these were some good games by my opponent and me. And the tournament is just starting. You guys will have fun with the rest too. So thank you guys for joining. Chess Mob